Top 51 games of all time, number 20 to number 11. Come on back after the break. Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to the board game and hobby, and this is my top 51 games of all time, numbers 20 to number 11. We're going to make this really quick and get on to the game, stop the little chitter chat, and let's go ahead and start things off with number 20. Number 20, and jumping up from number 36, is going to be Legends of Andor, a 1 to 6 player game of adventure across this great land of Andor, where the players are working cooperatively in an effort to stop some great baddie from taking over the land. Whether it happens to be a baddie that happens to be a giant dragon, who's normally his wings stay on much better, but a giant baddie such as a dragon, maybe it has to be a troll who's taking over a castle, or maybe some creatures who's moving a siege in to come take out the capital castle for our heroes. Whatever the grand enemy happens to be, this is a story-based game that is absolutely amazing if you just think about the amount of work and the amount of effort that went into this great grand design, and it's all done by one person, Michael Menzel. Mr. Menzel has created a game here that is an absolute joy of adventure, and it's also a very extremely tight game. But again, the gameplay in just a second. He has created a game here where he has done all the artwork, all the design, all the work, and he's created this rich game which is going to play different every single time you play it, except for the introductory adventure. But let's go ahead and move on beyond that really quick here. This is a game that has so much variety in gameplay, yet it's a game that's all about the math, the strategy, and the tactics, and this is a game that evolves every single time you play this game. So the way you're going to play this game is every time you're going to play this game is you're going to take a deck of cards, and you're going to take a certain amount of cards based on a certain letter of the alphabet, and you have a whole bunch of cards of the alphabet. For example, you're going to take one A1 card, then you look at all the A2 cards, and you can pick one of the A2 cards, and that's going to be your next card you're going to have. You look at all the A3 cards, you can pick one of those A3 cards, that's going to be the next card you're going to have, and all the way down, you're going to create the storyline that you're going to try to complete, and how you build the storyline is going to randomize every time because you have these multiple different cards that work together to create the story. And then you're going to have this wonderful fantasy story that's going to evolve as the players play, and this is the wonderful thing about this game. This game actually has an evolving storyline where you're basically going to read a card and it's going to give you some options. The players are going to go out there with a little bit of knowledge. As they explore this land and as the bad guys start working towards the castle, and as the players are working against this narrator, which is a horrible, in a very good way, time pressure sink in this game, they're trying to go out there and explore to figure out exactly what the grand adventure is. Whether it's trying to save a prince, whether it's trying to hunt down a witch, whether it happens to be to figure out what is causing the grand fog, or maybe there's a kraken that's coming to destroy all the bridges and destroy our lands. Our heroes must go out there and explore these lands and figure out what they need to do to defeat these grand baddies, complete a quest before all these minor baddies slowly work their way into the castle. If too many of the baddies work their way into the castle, our heroes are going to lose the adventure. And again, this is a game that's played with a very strong time constraints, and your actions and your decisions every single round are going to influence your time constraints of the game itself. Because the basic flow of the game is players have a certain time track. Every action they're going to take in the game is going to use up a unit of time. Once all the players have used up their unit of time, the day is going to pass and the monsters are all going to start advancing on the board. So the players are fighting this constant back and forth when they play this game. If they go out there and defeat the monsters, the narrator is going to advance. If the narrator ever gets to the end of the track, the player is going to lose the game. So we have this constant back and forth of trying to go out there and explore what the grand adventure is, while making sure we're defeating just the right amount of baddies to make sure we protect the castle, but we can't defeat too many baddies, because if too many baddies get defeated, the narrator is going to advance and we're going to run out of time. This game has a very strong Lord of the Rings feel where the players are outnumbered by very powerful beasts. This is not like a Dungeons and Dragons style game where one hero can take out 10 orcs or something like that. This is a game where a grand party of adventurers needs to work together just to take out one mighty nasty troll. So this goes back to much more of the more traditional fantasy tropes where monsters and bad guys were very tough challenges. Our heroes must go across the land, find the magic MacGuffin card or the magic MacGuffin item that's going to help them hunt down the mighty evil dragon, defeat the dragon, and save the game. This game has some wonderful design elements for it. It's a wonderful cooperative game. It has a lot of amazing amount of replay for it. And I didn't show it here, but there's actually a game or a lot of standalone expansions for this game which actually evolve the storyline, and it's a continuous storyline that has, I think, like 23 different adventures in it, if not more, especially if you can speak German, because there's lots of fan-made extra adventures are on the website for the game. This is an absolutely brilliant game and absolutely wonderful design. It's a game I have a wonderful, tremendous joy every time I play it. thanks to all the expansions, all the different variety with the different classes in the game, and the wonderful fact that this is a game that's so much about the tactics, so much about the strategy, and so much about the discussion of the tabletop as you're working with so limited resources in an effort to go out there and save the land and defeat the grand bad guy. Number 19, dropping 6 points from 13, is the game of Seasons. Now, Seasons is an absolutely wonderful game. If you've never played it before, and if you like games with card drafting and a little with dice mechanics, this is a game that you're absolutely going to enjoy. The basic idea of the season is every single player is a wizard, and you're trying to play out through multiple seasons throughout 3 years to gain resources, to get your cards into play, to get the most amount of victory points at the end of the game. The interesting thing about this game is how this game plays out from the very start of the game and out throughout the entire gameplay itself. The basic idea of the game is at the beginning of the game, players are going to draft a hand of cards, and they're going to use this hand of cards in an effort to get extra powers, extra abilities to play out through the seasons and throughout the years. You can go ahead and get all those grand victory points. The cool thing about this is every one of these cards gives them different special abilities, such as summoning familiars that allow you to do things, different interactions with the other players, and different powers and things that are going to be either temporary powers, permanent powers, in an effort to get the most amount of victory points to win the game at the end. One of the absolute amazing things that I really enjoy about this game is how well the dice mechanics in this game marry so darn well with the card mechanics. I love card games. I've always enjoyed card games. I enjoy your drafting games. I enjoy your tableau building games. But this game takes the standard mechanics of tableau building games and your card drafting games and mixes it with the dice mechanic. And the very cool thing is that your dice are going to determine which kind of resources you can possibly get every single round. And again, remember, like I said, you need those resources to get these cards into play every single round. So you're going to play out every single round with a certain amount of dice based on the amount of players. And you're going to roll the amount of dice. And then in player order, players are going to take one of the dice. Whichever die they take is going to determine which kind of resources they're going to gain. And then they can use those resources, again, like I said, to bring those cards into play. So there's lots of mechanics involved in this game because each set of these dice gives them different resources. So you have to plan the game out through multiple rounds in advance because different resources are more prone to come out in different seasons. Of course, it makes sense. As you're playing in the summertime, you're going to get more green, earthy type of resources. As you're playing in the wintertime, you're going to get more water, cold-based resources. So it kind of makes this interesting mechanic. And on top of this mechanic, every time you start this game, you're only going to start with a certain amount of cards, but before you even start, you have to go through your very limited hand of cards and pick a certain amount of cards that you're going to use the first year. Put them off to the side. Then you're going to look at the remaining cards and pick your second year cards, put them off to the side, and then finally you're going to take your third year cards. So you have this drafting mechanic where you need to plan for multiple seasons, multiple years, understand the way the dice works, understand the special powers that are available, and it's a drafting game, so you kind of have an idea what other cards the other players have, but you're trying to build up the best combos, and you're trying to work together to get as powerful as you can because there's limiting mechanics in this game in a very good way that force you to build up in a very smart way. You can't just pretty much just throw your luck to the wind in this game. You have to plan for multiple seasons, multiple rounds, and multiple years in advance, which is one of the grand things I really enjoy so much about the game of Seasons. It's a game that is a phenomenal amount of replay, especially with the extra expansions, which are going to give you a lot more cards in this game. Thanks to the drafting mechanic, thanks to the way the dice mechanic is going to work, and thanks to the combinations you're going to build from all the cards you're going to get into play. It's a phenomenal amount of replay. And a game that plays in pretty much an hour, and it plays great all the way from 2 to 4 players. My only negative I ever have about this game is this is one of those games that since I do play with 5 players a lot, I can't get this game to the table as much as I want to because this is a game that I absolutely adore. I absolutely enjoy this, and every time I play this game, I have an absolute blast because I love the richness, the depth, and the strategy and the tactics that go into the game of Seasons. Number 18 on the new list is the most graphically inconsistent, ugly at times, and, well, not quite as ugly at times, but a dang good game nonetheless is the game of Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is a tableau building game where the players each control a corporation. This game does play up to 5 players, sorry I forgot to mention that. But this is a tableau building game where players are working competitively in an effort to go ahead and terraform the planet on Mars. Of course, with expansions, you also get Venus and other options to make more gameplay variety for the game. But in the basic set of the game, you're trying to terraform Mars. And the players can do that in various different ways, but again, we're working as each individual corporations, spending resources, spending money, doing various different things through tableau building and card play, where we get cards such as cards with a picture of a worm on it, and or we get things that look like clip art that we found from, online at Microsoft.com. But that's besides the point. If you look at the gameplay itself, this is a game that plays phenomenally. It plays fantastically, and this is a game that is very rewarding to players who are willing to put in the time to learn the strategies and the tactics and the very rich depth that comes with this game. Because this is an interesting game that kind of has an interesting ebb and flow. Because players, like I said, are trying to terraform the planet, and they're going to do that by building up on the planet, whether it happens to be cities they're going to build on the planet, whether they're going to build craters on the planet, whether they're going to build out water or anything like that on the planet. And all these things are going to work together to level up the greenhouse gases, to level up the oxygen on the planet, and make it so the planet of Mars itself can be inhabited. And players need to be making sure that they're reminding all their personal resources in an effort to help work together to bring all these things together. Once the oxygen level and the water level and the temperature of the planet reach a certain level, the game is going to come to an end, and the player who has the most amount of victory points to be the grand winner of the game. Now, one of the things I enjoy immensely about the game Terraforming Mars is the fact that this game has a phenomenal amount of replay to it. Just including the fact that there are massive amount of cards that come with this game that all have different abilities, different powers, and you're going to have to make multiple different synergies and tactics. And I'm not going to lie to you here. This is going to be one of those games where you're going to play multiple times, because the first time you're going to play this game, you're going to be going, hey, I got this really cool strategy, and then somebody's going to play this card, and you go, oh, you can do that? Oh, that's kind of cool. But once you learn this game and learn the strategies and the tactics and the combinations and the cards available, you're going to start seeing that this game has a rich amount of replay and a rich amount of variety and a fantastic amount of strategy in the game. There's multiple expansions, like I said, that are going to add much more to the variety, whether it's extra maps for the game, extra corporations, extra rules, extra variety, and so many things that are just making sure that this game has a phenomenal amount of replay. This is one of those games that you're going to buy, and it's almost going to be like a lifestyle game. If you enjoy tableau building games, this is a game that you need to have in your collection. This game is getting dangerously close for me to almost approaching the level of like that I have for the game Race for the Galaxy, which is a game that I've been playing for, I don't know, I've been playing Race for the Galaxy since it already came out. And in my mind, it's like the absolute best tableau building game. But this game is approaching it by taking the basic idea of a tableau building game, adding in the concept of a board that you need to manage, that you're working together semi-competitively. Actually, let me correct myself. Mostly competitively, but with a semi amount of cooperativeness, because you're all working together to build up the planet Mars, but you're all competing to be the corporation that does it the best, ends up the richest, and gets the most amount of victory points at the end of the game. That's the game of Terraforming Mars. Number 17, and moving up from 48, one heck of a jump, is going to be Fury of Dracula. The absolutely best hidden moving game on the market right now, bar none. And this is a game that's almost 30 years old now. If you look at all the multiple editions, it's currently in its 4th edition. You're looking at the 3rd edition right here. But what is Fury of Dracula? Fury of Dracula is a hidden moving game where one person is going to take the role of the horrible, evil Prince of Darkness himself, Dracula, while the other players are taking on the classic roles of Van Helsing, Mina Harker, and the others, who are trying to do nothing more than find the evil count, find him in his coffin, take a stake, bury it through his heart, cut off his head, and end his evil reign all across Europe. Now, this is a game of cat and mouse, where the cat and the mouse is constantly changing, and unfortunately, the cat and mouse is mainly controlled by Dracula, who is very much in control of this game, which is what elevates this game so much higher for me over games such as Letters from Whitechapel and the game from Played Hat Games, which is currently the name of it's escaping me, but this game, to me, trumps all these games on multiple different levels. The way this game simply plays, and let me explain to you how the game plays, and I'll explain to you why I find this game so fantastic. The way this game is going to play is every single round, none of the players know where Dracula is on the board. Dracula isn't writing on a board, Dracula isn't doing little markers or check marks or anything on their own personal map. The way Dracula is going to move is with this hand of cards right here. Dracula is simply going to look at their hand of cards, place it down on the track right here, and that signifies where Dracula happens to be. No muss, no fuss, no fighting, no illogical movement or anything like that. It's just perfectly nice and clean. And then when Dracula moves to a new location, we're simply going to slide this card up, and we're going to play out the next card that Dracula happens to move to. Now, of course, the Dracula player is looking at these cards, and they have to make legal movements. Obviously, I can't hop from Castle Dracula all the way across Europe, because then I'm a dirty cheater. But if we're playing honestly, we're playing legitimately, this game plays phenomenally well. And as the heroes are working across the board, trying to hunt down Dracula, the game has this very interesting cat and mouse effect to it. Because Dracula wins the game if they can make the despair track go all the way up to number 13. So Dracula controls the flow of the game, because the heroes are hunting him down in a day and a night cycle. And the heroes are stronger during the day, and weaker at night. So Dracula tries to make sure that all the encounters occur on his turf at night when he controls things. Whether it's encounters with Dracula himself, or it happens to be the minions that Dracula's created, such as the plague of rats, the wolves, the bats, or even his own minions, his own vampires that he's created all across Europe. Basically, Dracula is trying to mature vampires across Europe, occasionally play the cat game and go after the mice to also create despair, because again, if you create enough despair, they are going to win the game. On top of that, this game has a wonderful time pressure built into it, because after the third week, the despair tracker is going to start moving up so much immensely faster. So players know that there's a time pressure constantly going on with them. So the players are working together, constantly trying to use their personal abilities, their personal powers to hunt down Dracula and do a nice, wonderful day and night cycle, which is an additional thing that's really, really interesting about this game. Because as you play this game during the day and night cycle, if it has to be the daytime, you're going to draw incident cards or encounter cards from the top of the deck. The nice thing is you can look and see this symbol and say, hey, this is a card that's going to be great for us. This card is going to be very, very bad for us. Let's go ahead and get rid of that card. Unfortunately, at the nighttime, you're going to draw the cards from the bottom, so you don't know exactly what kind of encounters you're going to have. It could be a good encounter, or it could be a bad encounter. And again, once you draw these cards, you have to resolve them. So again, there's many more strategies and tactics and much more depth to this game. This is a phenomenal game. It absolutely nails the concept and the theme of Dracula himself, whether it's traveling across this great land, hunting down the heroes, or maybe just sitting back and hiding while you let your vampires mature to help braze up the despair track. It has nailed the theme and the concept of the Fury of Dracula. The Dracula theme, it just absolutely shines in this game. A wonderful game of cat and mouse, a wonderful game of hidden mechanics, a wonderful game between one person and a group of other players. That is Fury of Dracula. Number 16, and jumping up from number 44, is the classic game of 51st State. At least the 51st State Master Set, because this is basically the second edition of the game. Now, the game of 51st State, this is a tableau building game with multi-use cards. I absolutely love multi-use cards in games, because a multi-use card game forces you to make amazing decisions, and it creates some wonderful decision trees, because you look at every single card and you go, oh, hey, why don't I look at a card? You look at a single card and say, I could use this to build this building. I could use this building and take it and destroy it and raid it for spoils. Or I can go ahead and make a deal with this building, or I can use it for victory points, or I can do this with this building. All these different things that creates these wonderful different mechanics. And this is one of the things I immensely love about the game of 51st State. So the basic idea of the game of 51st State is this is the future. Call it a Mad Max world or whatever you want to call it. But the players are trying to build up their little 51st State in this Mad Max style world. And the player's going to start with a hand of cards, and you're going to use your hand of cards, and you're going to build buildings where there happen to be buildings that happen to be close, or maybe they're buildings further away, but these buildings can do things such as give you resources, give you victory points, give you an engine to start building these kinds of resources, whether it's resources such as getting extra soldiers for your group, or maybe it's going to be aggressive soldiers. You can go out there and raid other buildings. Maybe it's going to give you some contact specialists, which can allow you to get actual contacts and make deals with the other people. All these different things, you're going to play these hands of cards, and again, these are multi-use cards. You're going to play them from your hand down to the table for the buildings you're going to build and play, or you maybe destroy the cards or raise them, as it says in the game, to destroy them, which basically means you're sending your fighter style, your guys, whatever you want to call them, you're sending your guys out there to go out there and ransack these buildings. You're going to discard the card, but you get the resources for it. Or you send your contact specialists out there, and they're going to go out there and actually make deals with these different buildings or these different people, and it's going to be permanent extra income resources you're going to have for the rest of the game. So there's multiple different strategies, multiple different tactics just from the style of the cards that come with the game. And that's not even the greatest thing about this game. This game has expansions which add extra replay variety, extra strategy, and extra tactics. But again, that's not the greatest thing about the game. There's multiple different factions, and all these factions are semi-asymmetric, which means they all play ever so slightly differently. But again, that's not the greatest thing about this game. One of the greatest things about this game, and something that's so rare in tableau-style building games, is the fact that you need to protect your resources. This is another thing that I absolutely love in games. I am not a huge fan of games where you can go out there, get your engine building, and then it becomes basically a race between all the players. Whoever gets their engine building first is going to be pretty much going to be the person who's going to win the game. And the rest of you can pretty much sit back and go, okay, I'm going to generate 5 victory points this turn. You're going to generate 7 victory points this turn. You're going to build 10 victory points this turn. Next turn I may be able to go from 5 to 6 victory points. You're still going to be at 10, maybe 11. You're slowly going to snowball. Well, we know where this game is going to go. One of the absolute fantastic things about 51st State is you can attack your opponent's buildings. So if your opponent has a building that you see that's trying to rack in a lot of victory points, send out your guys, go out there and go ahead and raise that building. Sure, it's not an absolute travesty when you get one of your buildings raised. And matter of fact, when one of your buildings is raised, you actually get a little bit of resources back. So it's not like a very much a take that style game, but it's a game that gives you a feel that you have some agency when you play this game for when another player just happens to get the right lucky card. I mean, anytime we play a tableau building game, we know that tableau building games have just a smidgen of luck in them, and it basically comes with the luck of the draw. You happen to have the right turn order, the right card happens to come up, and you happen to have the other card in your hand to build the perfect combination. Sometimes that luck creeps up in these games. 51st State has built in a design mechanic, which means that anytime this happens, that the players can stop that from happening. If you want to spend the resources, you can stop that opponent from across the table from you from going ahead and snowballing, which is something that I so greatly appreciate about this game, because not only do you have to build your engine, you have to protect it, because the other players can come after your engine if you don't protect it. Yes, you can protect your engine, which is a really cool thing, but if you fail to protect it and just razor focus on the fact that I have my engine built and I'm just going to let it steamroll, the other players are going to go, oh, no, your engine's not going to steamroll, because my guys are going to come out there, they're going to destroy your building. And yeah, it's not going to hamper you horribly, but I'm going to get some resources out of it, and I'm sure as heck I'm going to slow you down so I have a chance to go ahead and win this game. Now, this game has some expansions available for it. There's actually another expansion coming out very, very quickly, and this game actually has some solo rules in them, and they're decent solo rules. It's not the best. The solo AI it's average difficulty. After you play the game a couple of times, you'll probably beat the AI. It's not a big thing, but it's a nice way to practice the game. It's a nice way to learn the game. And the expansion that's coming out pretty soon, the Moloch expansion, which is actually available for pre-order right now. So if you like this game, quickly run, go buy it, pre-order it, whatever you need to do, because it's definitely going to be worth it. But that expansion is going to add some more gameplay, more variety, and different ways that you can play this game. 51st State, in my opinion, is an absolutely fantastic tableau building game. It's way up there on my list for a very good reason, because this is a phenomenal game with a fantastic amount of replay, fantastic amount of variety, and one of the greatest things I like is player agency and direct player interaction, something I absolutely enjoy in every board game I play. That's 51st State. Number 15, and jumping up from 31, is going to be the classic game of Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders is a drafting game for up to 7 players, conveniently considering the game is called Seven Wonders. It plays anywhere from 2 to 7 players, and don't play this game as 2-player. There's actually a standalone version of the game that's good for 2 players. Don't play this game as 2 players. But this is actually a fantastic game for 3 to 7 players. And the basic idea is this is a drafting game. Players are going to play this game out as a classic civilization, playing through the first, the second, and the third age in an effort to have the most prolific empire at the end of the game. During the first age, you may get more basic cards, such as cards that give resources such as stone pits. As you evolve in the second age, you might start developing things such as aqueducts. And finally, by the time you get to the third age, you're going to start inventing things such as philosopher guilds and things along those lines. But there's also war, ships, and then various different things once you add in all the expansions such as the Tower of Babel and various different things that create this wonderful, very dynamic game that I would never include all these expansions in one single game. But the amount of variety you're going to get from all these different expansions are just going to add so much phenomenal variety and wonderful replay to a game that's absolutely fantastic, even to this day. Yeah, I do admit that Seven Wonders is an older game. The game has been out for a long time now, but this is one of those games that in my mind is an absolute evergreen game. This game is enjoyable. It actually has a second printing run, or I think it's kind of a second edition. I don't know if they made any major changes. My understanding just pretty much just art changes, but this is a game that is absolutely phenomenal and absolutely wonderful to play. The strategies in this game are absolutely wonderful. It's a very interesting design of a game where even though this game plays up to 7 players, it's not one of those games that you're going to go, oh my gosh, this is a 7-player game. Are we going to be playing this game for like 10 hours? No, the amazing thing is the way this game is designed so phenomenally well. It doesn't matter if you play this game all the way up to 7 players, because the way the game is designed, where you're basically playing against the player to your left and the player to your right, no matter how many players at the table, it keeps the game evolving and moving very, very quickly. And it's basically the idea of the game is at the start of every single round, you're going to start with a hand of 7 cards. You look at your hand of cards, you're going to pick one of the cards, place it down, you pass the other cards to your left. And the card you can place down, you can do various things such as building your great wonder for your civilization. You can use it to bring into place where the civilization can start having resources or produce resources. You can cash in for money, and you can even start borrowing resources from neighbors and everything like that in an effort to build up your empire. You're going to do this for the full first round, completely passing out the cards. Once you complete the first round, all the nations are going to go to war against their neighbor to the left and their neighbor to the right. Based on your war strength, you're going to maybe lose victory points or gain victory points. You're going to go on to the second age, repeat the process, go to the third age, and you're going to repeat the process. And like I said, the wonderful thing about this is just the way the phenomenal design of the game is. Even if you play with up to 7 players, it doesn't take that much longer. You can actually play a 7-player game of 7 Wonders in probably about an hour and 20 minutes or less. I've done it. It's amazing and it's wonderful. And it's a game that's so much rich variety, so much rich strategy, so many awesome tactics to create this wonderful card game that is so easy to teach, so easy to play, but so rich in depth and strategy, especially when you start adding in all these wonderful extra expansions. That's the game of 7 Wonders. Number 14 and new to the list is going to be the game of Nemo's War. Now, Nemo's War is a cooperative game for up to 4 players, and there are some semi-competitive rules in the game, but the best way to play this game currently is as a cooperative game. Nemo's War is a game that actually recently, a couple months ago, well, probably about 5 or 6 months ago now, did a complete video series on. If you want to see exactly what is so great about this game, go ahead and check out that video series, but I'm going to cover it here as quick as possible. I played Nemo's War twice. And after my second game, I went out there immediately and bought all the available expansions for this game. Not because I think it needed expansions to fix it, but because this game was so absolutely phenomenal, I knew I wanted to have all the expansions. The game of Nemo's War has taken the classic novel of 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea and turned the idea of that book into a phenomenal cooperative game that has so many decision spaces, so much richness and so much variety, and a phenomenal round of replay, and a wonderful strategy tactical game that is just so darn amazing to play every single time you play it. Because every time you play this game, it tells the story of 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea, but every time you play this game, it plays out differently. And that starts playing differently right from the beginning of the game, just because of how you want to play the game. The very first thing you're going to do when you play this game is you're going to decide if you want to go for more of an explorer way of playing the game, if you want to go for more for anti-imperialism, if you want to go as more of an adventurer, if you want to go as a humanist, if you want to go out for science, or if you want to go out for war. And that basic thing right there is going to affect your strategies and affect your tactics and exactly how you're going to be playing out across this board. Because the basic idea of the game is every single turn you're going to have an adventure card. And this adventure card is going to give you challenges and things that you need to do, and you're trying to complete all the challenges of this adventure deck. If you make it all the way through the adventure deck without suffering utter tragic defeat, you get to score yourself in the epilogue. And trust me, the first couple times you play this game, you are probably going to see this epilogue a heck of a lot. Yes, that's the defeat epilogue, because it takes at least 185 points just to see the worst ending. Not the failures, actually see the worst successful ending, just to show you how challenging this game is. I have played this game multiple times, and I have yet to see the best triumph in this game. I've never done it. I'm still trying, and I sure as heck want to see it one day, but I am still working hard on seeing this best ending. But the basic idea, like I said, this game is you're going to play through these adventures, and you're trying to get through this entire adventure deck. While you're trying to get through this adventure deck, various different things are happening, because the Imperialists and the different warships are coming out across the area, and they have one goal and one goal only, and that's the goal of hunting down Nemo and sinking him 20,000 leagues beneath the sea. So you as Nemo, you're trying to sail across the wonderful world right here, trying to defeat the Imperialists, trying to explore the land, trying to get rich treasures, trying to explore different sites, trying to use your resources, trying to use your crew to the best of your ability, while working on trying to upgrade your ship and just trying to survive this entire adventure deck while you go on all these wonderful adventures. Now, the game is absolutely very, very challenging, very fun, and very entertaining. And this game has a lot of variety because you have all these cards in this game. But trust me, you're not going to use all these cards every time you play this game. You're going to shuffle this deck of cards, and you're going to take a certain amount of these cards every single time you play the game. And the game has a nice progression as it plays throughout the game. And the game slowly ramps up the difficulty, because based on the kind of motive that you pick, you're going to build this adventure deck differently every single time you play the game. And it's going to change even when you pick the same motive more times. And the motive is going to influence how the build of the board is going to evolve, how your gameplay is going to evolve, and just your strategies and your tactics, whether you're going to try to evolve your ship constantly because you're going out for war, so you need a more powerful ship, whether you're going to try to incite the local cultures to try to fight back against the imperialists, or whether you're just trying to go on grand adventures to see these wonderful sights, get these wonderful treasures while these horrible imperialists are trying to sink you down in the sea. All these different strategies and different tactics ensure that this is a game that has wonderful variety, wonderful replay, And this is a phenomenal solo game, which is something that's just great to say in our current time with what's going on across the world. Having great, phenomenal solo games is an absolute wonderful thing to do. And this is a game that you're going to pull out, you're going to play over and over and over again, and you're going to enjoy the gameplay every single time you play the game because it's going to evolve, it's going to be wonderful, and it's just a phenomenal gaming experience. That is the game of Nemo's War. Number 13, and moving up from number 15, is going to be Lords of Zidit, a program movement game for up to 5 players. Now, Lords of Zidit is my absolute favorite program movement game, and this is a wonderful game that I enjoy every single time I play it. Now, if you're not familiar with the idea of a program movement game, the basic idea of a program movement game is at the start of every single turn, every player is going to take the little programming dial, and they're going to program in the moves that they have to take on their turn. Once all the players have programmed their moves, everybody's going to everybody's going to reveal their program movement board at the exact same time, and then players are going to carry out their moves one step at a time, and then that's what we're going to do. We're going to go on over multiple different rounds, and that's basically how we're going to play a program movement game. But this game takes that one step further because in the game of Lords of Zidit, every single player represents a magical hero who's trying to gather up armies to defeat these horrible titans, which are doing their best to decimate the land. And the way you're going to take out these titans is by going to these different towns, these different villages, and hiring farmers, hiring wizards, hiring warriors, hiring priests, and hiring sorcerers in an effort to take out these horrible different titans. And every single titan has a different things it needs to take it out. For example, to take out this titan, I need an army of archers, an army of warriors, and an army of sorcerers. So I need to go to every single one of these towns and start picking up all these people, take these armies over there, and go ahead and defeat these horrible titans. If I defeat these titans, I'm going to get rewards such as I'm going to have towers built to my armor, towers of sorcery built to my honor. The bards may go out there and sing my praises, or I may just get paid taking out this horrible different creature. And then as soon as these titans are taken out, more titans are going to spawn across the board, and more villagers are going to spawn across the board. Here's the interesting thing about this game. Since this is a program movement game, and everybody's going to program their movements secretly, you don't know what the other players are doing. I don't know if the player across from me is going after this titan, or if they're heading over to this town to get these resources, or if they're trying to do any various different things. And another interesting thing about this game is when you go to a town to pick up some armies to fight with you, you can't just pick any army you want. You have to claim the armies in a special order as dedicated or as dictated on every single one of these tokens. So for example, if I were to program move it over to this location, the first time I go to this location, I have to take the farmer first. Well, what if I don't need a farmer? What if I need this green archer right here, which means that I don't want to go to this town. I want somebody else to go to this town first, get both those farmers, and then once the farmers are both gone, then I can move over and take the archer. But if I don't plan it right, what if the person across the table over here, they also think they need an archer, and they're going to go out there and get the archer themselves? Because another interesting thing about this game is everybody's armies is secret, because everybody's going to have a shield, and behind the shield they're going to list their armies, their current amount of money, and their current resources. So you're never quite sure exactly what the players across the table are doing, what they want to do, or where they're going. So it's this constant mind game of where you're thinking, okay, I know you got a sorcerer last round, but I don't think you've got any warriors, so I know you're not going here. But you may be going against a warrior. Okay, wait, no, I think I got it wrong. Wait, maybe you have this thing going on over here. And you have this wonderful mind game, which just creates this wonderful amount of gameplay variety. But what steps this game up one level beyond this is every time you play this game, before you set up the game, you're going to set up the victory conditions, and you're going to randomize these victory conditions. For example, you may say that you're going to place the harps of the bards first, the money second, and then the sorcerer towers third. And the way you're going to win this game is by not having the least of the resource at the end of the game when that resource is counted up. So, for example, let's say the bards singing your praises are going to be the first thing that we're going to have. So as long as you don't have the least amount of bard praise, you get to move on to the second section, but whoever has the least here is going to be bumped out and they can't win the game. Then we're going to factor in the money. So when we factor in the money, as long as you don't have the least amount of money, you can go on to a third victory condition and see if you can manage to win the game. So this game has this very interesting thing where it's not about getting the most of any resource, it's about not having the least of any special resource when that special resource has to be graded. So this game has a lot of wonderful replay, a lot of wonderful variety, and a lot of wonderful tactics, and it's an awesome program movement game. That's Lords of Zidit for up to 5 players. Number 12, and dropping down from number 2, is a great one because I don't have to set up a board game because it's not a board game, it's an RPG. Number 12 is the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. The grandfather of all RPGs, Dungeons & Dragons, has reached its 5th edition, and this is probably the best version of the game that's ever come out. Now, it's not the crunchiest version, it's not the most in-depth, it's not the most deepest, richest RPG version of itself, or even the deepest, richest RPG on the market. But what it is it takes a whole bunch of great mechanics, whole bunch of great gameplay, and a whole bunch of potential for storytelling, and it creates a game that is easy to get to the table, easy to enjoy, and it's a game that allows the players to have a wonderful RPG experience in the game of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Now, it's really interesting to me when I always hear people raving about these campaign-style board games, all these campaign-style games that they're playing and they're enjoying. I always sit back and think to myself, these campaign games are never as great as the greatest campaign of all, which is the campaign of a great, fantastic RPG. For me, RPGs are a wonderful way to play games with friends. It's a phenomenal way to have lots of fun, and it's not even that hard. There are so many different modules, adventure systems, and box sets, and all these things for all the players to play, and you can play so many different ways when it comes to playing these classic RPGs. You can play an RPG as a standard, more of like a storytelling game. You can play it as more of a tactical combat game. You can even bring out tactical combat maps, buy a module, bring out the tactical combat maps that come with that module, and play with miniatures on a tabletop, rolling dice. It almost even feels like a board game, but it's a phenomenal, wonderful, enjoyable experience where your friends are going to have tons of fun playing this wonderful, wonderful game that's been around for decades now, literally decades. This game's in its 5th edition, and I'm telling you, if you're looking for the best campaign-style game, this is it. It's not Gloomhaven, it's not Descent, it's not all these wonderful other board games that are out there on the market that brag about how they're campaign games. No, this is the greatest campaign game of all. It's a wonderful game, and it's number 12 on my top 51 games of all time, the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Number 11, and jumping up from 22, is going to be the game of Dread. Now, Dread is an RPG, but unlike the game of Dungeons & Dragons, which can take weeks, months, or even years to play through a campaign, the game of Dread is a one-shot style RPG style game which does away with the concept of dice and brings in the concept of a Jenga tower. Now, I'll explain to you why it's so important, why the Jenga tower is just absolutely so important and integral to this game, but let me explain to you what the game of Dread is. Dread is a one-shot style RPG where basically players can play an entire adventure in basically about 3 to 5 hours. And the basic idea of the game is one person is going to be the storyteller and other players are going to be playing through the story. But Dread lends itself so well to science fiction, to horror, to things along those lines where you're trying to build up pressure and making everything as tense and creating an environment where the players are really feeling the story. And this is why the game does this so phenomenally well. Because unlike your standard RPG where you're going to roll dice and look at the chaos and the randomness of the results of dice, every time a player wants to do an action in the game of Dread, the storyteller is simply going to say, make a pull from the Jenga tower. And depending on how stressful the environment is or how challenging the thing is that they're trying to accomplish or whatever's going on, based on those different things, is going to decide if they make a single pull, a double pull, or maybe a triple pull from the Jenga tower to see if they can succeed at the act. If they manage to successfully make the pull from the tower, their character completes the action, and the action and the story is going to continue on from that point. But if the player fails to make the pull from the Jenga tower, that player is going to be the next player at the table to die. They may not die immediately. Of course, they may die immediately, depending on the storyline, depending on if you're doing a werewolf story, and the werewolf is lunging down from a cliff, lunging at a player, getting ready to rip out the throat, and the tension, the excitement is really raising, and then reaching over to try to from the Jenga tower, and they knock over the Jenga tower. Yeah, it's good for the story. They may die right then and there, but if they manage to knock over the tower, they at least know they're going to be the next ones to die. So this game is a wonderful one-shot RPG, and that's one of the great benefits of the game is the fact that you don't need to worry about this long campaign system. You don't need to worry if everybody's going to show up for the game next week, next month, or next year. Somebody's going to move away. Things are going to change because you're going to enjoy this entire campaign or this entire adventure in one gaming session. It tells us wonderful storyline. This game operates so phenomenally. You don't need to explain weird statistics. You don't need to explain THAC0 to hit armor class of 0. You don't need to explain saving throws, spells, hit points, or anything like that. You just need to say, bring your character to the table, and it's a wonderful character generation system. Let's set up the Jenga tower, and let's play the game Dread. Number 11. Hope you enjoyed this video covering number 20 to number 11 of my top 51 tabletop games of all time. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at offtheshelfboardgamereviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll be sure to answer your email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this video channel, you enjoy the content I'm putting out there, think about supporting the channel over on Patreon. Just one simple dollar in the tip jar can help me cover my costs and help keep content coming out for the channel. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.